Hey everyone, welcome to our second coffee hour, second virtual coffee hour. We're just getting situated here. We hope to make this a kind of a thing we do every few weeks just to stay engaged with everyone around the 21st district. We had our first one a couple weeks ago. It went well. We're still kind of learning the technology, but as of right now, we are streaming on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, I believe Instagram as well. My staff, both Ashley and Hannah, are working tirelessly behind the scenes to make sure that hopefully I don't mess this up on the front end for all of us here. But if you have any questions, if you have any concerns, please feel free to just drop a comment in the chat. You can always email our office if something's not working right, or if you have any questions. Again, please feel free to reach out. The whole purpose of these is to connect with everyone and to make ourselves more accessible. So I hope that this is working. We're going to be fluctuating with timings. The last one was kind of during the workday. This one's a little bit more into the evening. We'll try a weekend, and we're just trying to get I guess just what works for most people, but we'll keep kind of alternating that. But I do want to highlight that if you could, in whatever respective forum you are watching this, there should be a Google form pinned to the chat for you to sign in. That will help us just kind of collect some information on who's watching. You can just let us know your preference for timings. Again, just trying to figure out what works best for everyone. But with that being said, we have quite a few things we wanted to kind of run through today. A number of things happening in Lansing. But I wanted to just bring a couple of just unique projects that we have working on in our office here. I'm so proud of my team. They've just been working so hard since we've started. We're not maybe about 7 weeks or so into this, but we have just a number of unique things that we're doing that I'm excited to share with everyone. And so the first of these is a new program called the Student Advisory Group. So I am really excited about this one. I am forever indebted to all the young people who helped our campaign and just put in so much effort to make me a better candidate, to just make our campaign that much better, and to just find a way to just continue to have young people involved. So this is a program geared towards students who are in grades between grades of 9th and 12th grade here in the 21st district. So if you're a student at Van Buren or Van Buren Schools or Belleville High School, if you are a student at PSEP, and if you live in Canton, Van Buren or Belleville, please feel free to apply to this program. My staff will put a link to the application form in the chat. Again, also information was sent out on our weekly newsletter and will be in the next one as well, just on information on how to apply, as well as also available on our social media profiles as well. But this is a really cool program just to try to get some more young people engaged. Unfortunately, it's a voice and a demographic that's marginalized in our political process. You're not allowed to vote until you're 18. But people start forming political opinions much before that. And so, we just want to provide a forum for these young people to get engaged, to understand how government works, especially a little bit more focus on the state level government, to meet like-minded people. I know at least when I was in high school, it wasn't the coolest thing at times to talk politics. Hopefully that's changed. But either way, it's just a way to make some friends and just meet other people who are kind of interested in this space. We're going to have a number of projects where we're going to demonstrate how bills are written and come up with some bill ideas. We're going to have networking events to bring in other elected officials. We're going to have a number of just initiatives just to teach all the different facets from being a candidate and a campaigner all the way to being an elected official, everything in between. And so we're just really excited about that. So hopefully you hear that in my voice. I'm going to be putting a lot of my personal time into this as well. I just think it's a really important initiative to try to keep young people engaged. And so if you know anyone that would be interested and who's eligible, absolutely please feel free to forward the information onto them or to contact us and to learn about how they can apply. So we're starting that up. We also have our Nominate an Exceptional Teacher program still running. So the deadlines for entries to that are this Friday, March 5th. And so we all know just the tremendous amount of sacrifice that teachers put in. It is a profession that unfortunately does not get the respect it deserves. I have just a tremendous amount of respect for teachers and just educators and anyone in the education community and school administrators. I know it's not easy. I know 2020 was certainly not an easy year for the education community, just with COVID and kind of the adjustments that had to be made on the fly. And so, if there was a way, I would like to recognize every teacher and school administrator in our district. But we do have a program where if you know anyone who is going above and beyond, someone that sticks out, please nominate them. Again, would love to recognize everyone, and we're going to hopefully try to get through all the nominations that come through. And we have some special things kind of planned for that. But those nominations are due. I know that there's been a number that have already come in. So again, just please get those in so we can get everyone the recognition they deserve. Today is also March 1st. And so that means it's the start of Women's History Month and also the start of March's Reading Month. And so for March's Reading Month, we plan to be very active. We have contacted, I believe, every single school in the 21st district, at least every elementary school in the 21st district, to try to reach out and schedule some time for me to come in and read to students, or to do it virtually, depending on kind of what works best for the class. Unfortunately, just logistically, there's no way we're going to be able to talk to every single classroom. But we're going to make it a very concerted effort to get into as many classrooms as possible. Again, just to just spend a little bit of time and read a book to them, and also just answer any questions. It's always great to just go in and speak to young students, because you're quickly reminded of why you did this in the first place. And it's great to hopefully inspire a future leader. And just to hear again from all of our future leaders and what's on their mind, to make sure that we're governing properly. And then for Women's History Month, we plan on doing a lot. I had the good fortune of joining. It was kind of a cool project that isn't public yet, but over the weekend I was paired up with a local nonprofit here that's empowering women. It's a nonprofit here locally, but it's empowering women all over the world, actually. And so it's just some really, really cool things in kind of the arts and humanities space. And so I'll be happy to share that in the next week or two when those details are ready as well. And then on top of all of that, we also have another program that we started, I believe today was launched, is our student book cover contest. And so again, just kind of on the theme of March's Reading Month, we are inviting any student between the grades of kindergarten and 4th grade to kind of show off some of their artistic skills and just to draw a picture of their favorite book cover. And so it could be the cover of the book that actually exists, or it could be the cover that the student thinks the book cover should have looked like, or if, and it, obviously creativity wins here. And so, or if there's a book cover for a book that you just thought of, feel free to kind of draw that and submit that. But, again, we want to do whatever we can to use this platform to engage, interact with our youngsters around the district. In non-COVID times, I think there would have been a little bit more flexibility, but we're trying to make the best of it here. And so, there's details again that are going to be posted in the chat for how this all works. But really, you kind of draw a book cover and submit it to us. There's going to be drop-off centers throughout the district, places where you can drop off the entries for your child. We're working with some schools directly where you might be able to even submit the entries, into the school administration. But with that being said, we want to highlight as many of these as possible. They're going to be showcased in our office in Lansing, and so we want to just show off all the talent that exists in the 21st district. So we'll have a special place in our office for these entries. Again, the winners will get a prize. And then we're also going to have another space. I got a separate topic. We're going to have another space for some small business stuff. But again, in kind of historic times, pre-COVID, there's a lot of traffic that comes through our office. And so it's really important for us to kind of uplift all the great things happening in the 21st district around the Lansing community, and to kind of show them how great we are And so hopefully things will get to a point where that traffic does pick up a little bit and people can kind of come and see all the stuff that we're showcasing. But needless to say, we're really excited for kids to get involved. Again, all this information will be in the chat. It'll be in our newsletter. If you have not subscribed, here's another shameless plug to subscribe to our newsletter. And it's also going to be on our social media. So I think that's about 4 or 5 different things. We just, again, want to be very accessible and interactive with the district. I'm really proud that even just a few weeks into this whole thing that the staff has been able to kind of really put this all together and create some really fun programs for people to get involved. So with that, hopefully everyone in the stream's working properly. We're still kind of learning our way through this technology. But again, if there's any issues, please feel free to just pop them into the chat and we'll make sure that we address those. But I guess kind of shifting gears and more into the Lansing space. So right now, it's kind of the budget process is happening. That's kind of the world we're living in. And so it's a long, tenuous process that requires just a lot of negotiations and conversations. So, we've received a number of emails from constituents around the district. And so we're thankful for each and every one of them, just people kind of letting us know what their priorities are and just what's important to them. In addition to talking to constituents, I have also made myself available to just probably dozens of organizations around Michigan for introductory meetings to kind of learn about what's important in their space and what their priorities are. And so this feedback is kind of what makes this process great. And so if you have ideas, never feel shy. Please feel free to reach out to our office. The details are in the corner here. And you can, again, just feel free to email or call, just whatever works best. And, we'll make sure to take those into account as we kind of go through these conversations. And, in my last bi-weekly e-newsletter, we laid out a graphic that kind of explains how the budget process works. And it's really this big circular process that kind of restarts at the beginning of every year. And so right now we're still kind of towards the early portion of it. In February, the biggest thing is that the governor puts out her recommendations. And so that happened about 2 weeks ago or so. And so any budget conversations that you've heard in the news are likely a result of just kind of the governor's recommendation that did come out. And then after that, again, there's just going to be a tremendous amount of conversation that happens. There's going to be appropriation subcommittees in the House and the Senate that are going to come up with their own versions. And then both of those subcommittees are going to come together to kind of see possible amendments at the committee level. And then there'll be some, on the floor debate to kind of get the final touches of that. And then that'll take us to kind of late May, early June. And then, again, all these processes will come together and we'll kind of flesh out a final version, which is then sent to the governor. And so in the ideal world, in June, the legislature will have something ready for the governor in June, in which the governor can then review and veto and out specific items, and we'll kind of see where we end up. And so, the process for the last cycle or two has been a Democratic governor with a GOP-controlled legislature. And so the negotiations have taken a little bit longer than they probably did in the previous governor's administration. So we will kind of just wait and see how negotiations go this year. And hopefully we'll kind of have that wrapped up again, kind of in the June timeframe is the legislator's goal with that. But for those who have not seen the governor's recommendations, I won't go through every single line because there's quite a bit, but it's about a $67.1 billion budget, which is on par with kind of how it's been the last few years. That includes, some of the federal appropriations that we are receiving. But more importantly, the focus of the budget, is for just increased funding for students and teachers, which is great. Investments into our infrastructure, which we talk a lot about here in Michigan and in our roads and and everything else encompassed under infrastructure, addressing obviously the public health crisis that we're currently experiencing. We need to just protect our Great Lakes a little bit better, and so there's a renewed focus at that. And then also, and certainly not least, is just boosting and aiding Michigan's small businesses. And so it's been a struggle in 2020. Our budget position is actually not as bad as our initial estimates from last year. But the pandemic didn't do us any favors. And so I think we're going to obviously have to have some tough conversations to kind of make sure that we're finding a budget that prioritizes our morals and our values, and to make sure that we're taking care of the things that we're supposed to, and that the sacrifice does not fall on the backs of working families, and that, again, we are providing solutions to all Michiganders, regardless of where they live or without any bias. And so, with that, again, just some quick highlights of the governor's budget. One thing I'm really happy about is the $200 million increase in per pupil funding. So that is the largest increase in Michigan's budgetary history. In terms of kind of money that's going to be headed to our schools. So that is great because the education community certainly could use every dollar that we get them. There's also $370 million investment into mental health, college readiness, and after learning programs. And again, I mean, there's a tremendous amount of information on the budget. We have it in our weekly newsletter. We've also posted on social media in weeks past, but we'll make sure to include it in this week's newsletter as well. Again, this is kind of the starting point and the governor's recommendations. And so we will kind of see where we end up with after negotiations. But I've had the privilege of talking to the governor directly on this. There is a very conservative effort on a DEI lens on the budget, making sure that we are closing some of the inequity gaps that unfortunately exist very much so in our state, and just to provide more equity in the way that we look at and fund issues and priority levels around the state. So it should be kind of unique in that sense. But we did vote on a couple bills, supplemental bills in the legislature for a couple weeks ago. There are 4 bills for the federal funding, in which I voted no. Unfortunately, there's just a lot of political theater that's still happening, where the federal government has appropriated $4 or $5 billion for Michigan. Now, this is Michigan taxpayer money that has been sent to DC, and that DC has approved and appropriated to send back to us. All we have to do is have our legislators say, yes, we agree, we want the money. This money is use it or lose it. So if we don't accept it, it's just going to go to different states. And there's really no catch. There's no reason not to take it. It's really that simple. Unfortunately, in politics, we're kind of hitting a home run here, and we're just leaving it on the field, and it really makes no sense. But the controlling party in the legislature is not willing to accept this money until our Democratic governor gives up her authority and powers in the middle of a pandemic, and so it just doesn't make sense, again, to kind of keep this money hostage for political theater. This is money that's going to go to funding public health and COVID relief to schools. I think about $2 billion to schools, if I'm not mistaken. And so it's really a shame to see the political theater starting and happening, even when we're talking about just relief for kids, for schools, for COVID. It's money that our state desperately needs. And all we have to do is say, yes, we need it. It's not a fiscal responsibility thing. It's nothing more than just trying to make things difficult for our governor. And so it's been 64 days to the date until since the federal government approved this money. I would urge you to, a majority of you hopefully live in the 21st district. If you don't, I would urge you to contact your local representative if they are not in support of accepting federal money, the full amount of federal money. it could go a long ways in terms of kind of the relief that we need here. But I guess getting back to the state budget a little bit, I'm not a member of the Appropriations Committee. And so when you join on, you can basically pick to go two different paths. And so you can either go to the appropriation side, which means you'll kind of be focused on these budgetary conversations that we're talking about, or you'll be kind of responsible for figuring out the bills that do pass and just how we pay for them. Or alternatively, you can go on a policy track, which is what I've picked to do. And so that's why I'm on three different policy committees, being energy, transportation, and agriculture. And so then you are tasked then with providing legislation, within kind of those and approving legislation within those buckets as it comes through. So I'm not in the Appropriations Committee, so I'm not in these conversations directly right now. But obviously, like everything else, everything is interconnected. So there is some level of interaction with this stuff. And then obviously, as it goes further along, our committees will have some interaction as well. So that's just kind of a quick lesson on our budget process, very high level. It's actually much more nuanced than that. But again, any questions, please feel free to email our office. All details are in the chat. And we would love to kind of answer any questions that you may have on this process or provide any just transparency that we can. All right. So I see some questions coming in. That's great. We'll get to those. I'm just going to get through a couple updates and then we'll kind of get through the questions as we get along here. But we're going to kind of shift gears to COVID. So the talk of the town right now is obviously trying to figure out the vaccination situation. We have received a number of inquiries regarding vaccines. And, I obviously know that this is top of mind for everyone. I do want to reiterate that the state legislator is not kind of tasked with overseeing this rollout. So there's not a tremendous amount that we can do directly. We obviously do, though, know how important this is to our constituents. And so we're doing our best to kind of dig around and come up with whatever information we can to help answer questions or just kind of help navigate this process. But overall, I know that the program did not start out very well for Michigan as a whole. We were off to a slow start, but things have actually changed for the better in the last few weeks. I know the governor during the state of state had her goal of about 50,000 shots administered a day. I am happy to say that we've had a number of days well above that, even into the 60s and upper 60s, 60,000 shots in a single day. So the capacity is being built in Michigan to make sure that we can get these shots out as quickly as possible. The issue at the end of the day is a supply problem. I don't want to get into the politicalization of why there's a supply issue, but because I've made it very clear on a number of town halls and chats I've been on. But this is obviously a result of the previous administration and their inability to procure enough vaccinations for our country. But that being said, now we're kind of righting the ship, so to speak, and we're getting millions of doses in throughout the country. Michigan is actually scheduled to receive its largest shipment this week coming up. We're going to receive over 400,000 doses being shipped to Michigan. 409,240, I believe, is the exact number. That's well above many previous weeks here. So things are on the up. We've already administered 2.1 million shots across our state. Majority of those have been individuals 50 years and older, with the largest segment being between the ages of 65 and 74. So look, not everything's going to be perfect. Our office gets dozens of inquiries about this, and I hear all sorts of rumors and stuff that's happening. I can say, largely speaking, the process is getting better. The people that need to begin this vaccination overall are the ones getting it. You're obviously going to have anecdotes and exceptions here and there, but again, overall, the process is working fairly decently. It fluctuates, but we rank between 7th and 9th on a daily basis, on the list of how many shots have been administered by state. So meaning Michigan at times has administered the 7th most vaccinations of any other state in the country. So we are well ahead of the curve. And then if you go down to county level, because that's really kind of how things are broken out in this process here, Wayne County is doing pretty well overall. Detroit has its own health center, and then Western Wayne County has the other health center. And so overall, when you combine those two, we're in really great shape. We want to see more doses in Wayne County, and that was a really big issue early on. But again, that's actually picked up quite a bit the last few weeks. And so now we're starting to see good numbers on that end as well. So I guess my advice is if you live in Wayne County and you haven't received a call yet and you're eligible, just stay resilient. It's on its way. Things are picking up. Things are moving along really well. I wanted to take a second right now and just highlight the work that was done in Canton. Our Wayne County Commissioner, Melissa Daub, helped spearhead a clinic that was hosted here in Canton, which enabled the residents of Canton and Plymouth to come in and receive their shots. So this was open to anyone over the age of 65. There was a phone bank set up in which people could call in to schedule their appointments. I think that was done just to, again, bring some equity to people who might not be tech savvy or have access to the internet, to make sure that everyone's getting a shot to get their appointments. I don't know the exact numbers, but I believe there was roughly 1,000 doses or vaccination appointments that were available. And if I'm not mistaken, 1 million phone calls were received. So listen, like it goes without saying how important this is to our community and how much we need to get these doses in as quickly as possible. 1 million phone calls in a couple hours is just a tremendous amount of demand. Those spots obviously went very quickly, and it wasn't the best process, but overall it did work. They got all their spots filled up. But more importantly, when the clinic was held this past weekend, that went very seamlessly, and people were in and out. What I heard was roughly 20 minutes from when they entered to when they exited. And so that was great, just to get, again, just some of our most vulnerable members of our community, the vaccination and into a very efficient process. Now, this part's important. If you were not one of the ones lucky enough to get an appointment on that list of 1,000, there is a wait list that is being formed. You can go to the Canton Township website and find a link to the COVID section, and there is a link to join the wait list. And so I know, I'm not sure, again, I'm not managing this, but from my conversations I've had with some of the stakeholders and people leading the effort, there's a strong push happening to try to get some more doses over here locally. We're going to try kind of getting through that list as best as we can. And so I would strongly recommend, if you're not on the wait list, to do that. And then again, for any other locale, just try your local township website or give our office a ring, and we'd be happy to kind of help assist and facilitate that as possible. Again, we're not responsible for overseeing it, but we want to help as best as we can in this crucial time. So yes, and then with that, I would like everyone also to point everyone to the Michigan Health and Human Services dashboard, which is a great tool that I look at actually every day. It just provides you a quick snapshot. There's like all these different dashboards available on the website to just break down how the doses are coming in, how they're being distributed, what's happening, it's just a kind of a good way to see kind of how that's happening. But for eligibility, things haven't changed in the last couple of weeks. We're still prioritizing seniors over the age of 65, teachers, first responders, law enforcement officers, healthcare workers. From my understanding, every teacher in Wayne County has been vaccinated. Every public school teacher in Wayne County has been vaccinated. I know that there were some drives here locally, again, to get both school districts within the House District 21 vaccinated. So, again, if you're a teacher and you haven't seen a vaccination, feel free to reach out to us so we can try to help with some of that as well. Just in any program that does exist out there. So whether you're going to your healthcare system, you're going to Meijer, you're going to Rite Aid, you do need an appointment. Please, there's no walk-up appointments available. Try to get a slot in beforehand before you go, just to kind of make sure that you're going there and you're not and that your visit and the time that you're taking out to go there is worthwhile, and you're not just kind of sent home if you don't already have an appointment. On the conversation of vaccinations, I wanted to bring up the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, which hopefully everyone heard was approved by the FDA. And so this is just fantastic news to help supplement our vaccination program here in Michigan. So this vaccine will be starting to arrive in Michigan actually this week. So I told you that we are receiving our largest shipment of vaccinations a couple minutes ago. We're receiving about 409,000. That 409,000 is just Moderna and Pfizer. And so in addition to the largest shipment that we're getting, we're going to receive some Johnson & Johnson vaccinations. So I don't have exact numbers on Johnson & Johnson, but I've heard numbers roughly around 80,000. So hopefully that's what I'm hearing. Hopefully that's true. Hopefully it's more. But as we get more information on that, we'll make sure to make that public as well. The Johnson & Johnson vaccination is effective. I know that there's different studies out there, kind of comparing all the vaccines and how they're different, this and that. I'm not a healthcare professional. I'm not a public health expert. I'm not an epidemiologist. But from my understanding, the best approach here is to take whichever vaccination you get an appointment for first. I wouldn't pick and choose and try to get one that you can't. The Johnson & Johnson one does have some logistical benefits. It's only one shot instead of having 2 appointments. So that's great. And it's also much easier to transport and store and all that stuff. Hopefully that's just going to be another kick in the right direction for our whole vaccination program in Michigan. And we're going to kind of get these out as quick as possible. So just really, really happy to see what's happening there. Couple more quick things before we get into the Q&A. So just kind of on the constituent side now, I'm super happy. I got my first governor's appointment. So Governor Gretchen Whitmer appointed me to her childcare and financial stability work group. So listen, I don't know of many people who don't think that there's better ways out there to improve our childcare situation. Whether it's it's just too expensive, or I know on the provider side, it's just there's many difficulties in terms of regulations and just staffing up. And again, like many other things in our society, COVID exacerbated a lot of these issues. And so the governor is making this a huge priority for her. She's dedicated hundreds of millions of dollars. I think I saw about $300 or $400 million to this process to just make childcare more accessible, to make owning and operating a childcare center just easier, and to make it just with the overall goal of just providing working parents the ability to send their children to affordable and very safe and reputable childcare options. And so I'm on I'm really honored to be on this work group. There's a couple other representatives from the legislature, along with private industry folks and just other childcare experts on this work group. We meet weekly, having some really good discussions already, and really hope to provide some bipartisan solutions and potential legislation that can, just help parents and children all across the state. And so, it's just another one of those issues where it's just not partisan, and, just the costliness of childcare just affects so many working families and doesn't really discriminate between your party affiliation. So just again, happy to be working through that. And we also had the ability to cut a couple ribbons. We helped launch the grand opening of Samosa Factory, a restaurant on Ford Road, which is kind of a unique idea and concept they have there. I urge everyone who's driving by Ford and Canton Center-ish on the south side, the southeast side of that intersection, to stop by and have a snack. And I don't think you'll regret it. We've been doing great in the office about trying to reach out to anyone who reaches out to us. We get just, again, probably hundreds of inquiries every single day. And I am not lying to you when I say that our team reads each and every single one that comes through. I think it's very, very important to always take a pulse of what's on the mind of everyone. And although we may not agree with everything that comes in, or some of them may not be the nicest messages, we do take the time to read all of them and take that input in. I would urge everyone to remember that our staff is working really hard, and there's no reason to be tremendously mean to anyone. And so I would just urge everyone to take it easy when you do call, and just understand that we want to help as quickly as possible. And that we're definitely ready here. We're definitely here and ready to serve and answer your questions. And so a lot happening on the constituent front. One last update on the unemployment side. So a new program in unemployment here for anyone who's eligible is the Mixed Earners Unemployment Compensation, or the MEUC program, which will provide an additional $100 in benefit to individuals who received at least $5,000 of self-employment income in the most recent tax year. So just another program to kind of keep on your radar if you would be eligible for that and the need of that. Again, that information will be available in our newsletter, or feel free to contact our office to kind of help navigate that piece. So I know I went through a lot. We had a tremendous amount of kind of just updates from the Lansing side, and I kind of glossed over a couple things. So if we have time, we'll get back into that. Otherwise, I'm actually going to be bringing on Hannah from our team here to help moderate all of the questions that we got in.
Let's see. We'll figure that out in a second. All right, everyone. We are going to take a few minutes and answer your questions that came in. So I'm looking at my other screen here. Our first question is from Sky, who's joining us from YouTube, and she wants to know where you stand on lowering the voting age to 16 in school board elections.
Yeah, this is a great question. I actually had the good fortune of meeting someone who was really kind of leading some advocacy issues for this. I think it's something to explore. I'm not, to be quite candid with everyone, I'm not super familiar if this has been done in other localities. But like I was saying before, I want to do whatever I can to empower the voice of our young community. And so I think this is kind of a shameless plug, but I think this is a great time for people who are eligible to apply to our student advisory group, because these are the type of discussions we're going to be having in the group, and to figure out kind of the best way going forward. But, again, like I said, people, as it stands right now, are not allowed to vote until they're 18, but start forming political opinions and start contributing to society much before that. And so I think it's something that is absolutely worth some discussion and for me to kind of learn more about.
All right, the next question is from Facebook, and they just want to know how your first month in office has been.
It has been, so thank you for the question. It has been very interesting. There's just a tremendous amount going on, and I think it's an experience none other. I don't think it's similar to what I had envisioned. And I think, no one planned for to start your term in the middle of a pandemic, you know, and up front, we had security issues with the insurrection happening at the U.S. Capitol. You know, Michigan kind of faced a lot. And so we just lost a lot of time and activity up front because of that. But now in February, I've really gotten going. I'm super proud of the staff that we have in our office. That's going to just empower me to do so much more work, getting to know my colleagues on both sides of the aisle, you know, and try to break some of the partisan divide that exists out there. Been happy to be appointed to some leadership positions by our own caucus. We'll have some more updates on that. And just getting to know everyone and lay the land. And so it's been a lot to take in, but I love it every single day. I love waking up knowing I get to represent so many wonderful people of the 21st District.
All right, another question here from Facebook, I believe is in regards to a package that might have been introduced last week, but the FOIA related package. So there have been some conversations about FOIA powers to be extended to both the legislature and the governor's office. And they would like to know if you are in support of this position in this package that I believe was introduced last week.
I am. I absolutely am. I co-sponsored that package. I'm happy to do so. Michigan has a transparency issue, and so there's no reasons why people in the legislatures should not be subject to the same FOIA requirements as others. And so I'm absolutely in support of more transparency in government here in Michigan.
All right, so question here pertaining to vaccines. Reggie on Facebook wants to know when we will be moving into the next phase for the vaccine.
You know, it's something that I unfortunately don't know myself. We are digging around into it. I can tell you that all metrics are pointing in the right direction, whether that it be the COVID caseload, you know, just our positive rates, our COVID cases, our deaths, all our hospital utilization, all that is coming down in the direction where we want it to be. There's actually talks of even trying to even reevaluate our governor's orders to see our executive orders to see if we can even open up society a little bit more here. And then on top of that, as I mentioned earlier in the chat here, there's a number of vaccines coming in, and Michigan is actually doing a great job in terms of metrics of from the time you receive them to getting them administered. We're actually one of the leading states in the entire country. So we've built the capacity here in Michigan to get them out sooner. So really it just kind of comes down to a supply issue. And again, the good news with that is this week we're receiving at a minimum 409,000 doses with the addition of any Johnson & Johnson doses that we get. So I'm happy with kind of how things are trending, but I would be guessing if I tried to put a date on when we could kind of open up to other phases.
All right. Another question here on Facebook from Reggie wanting to know when will the $1,400 stimulus checks go out to residents? And I believe that is in reference to the federal government and what they're working on.
Yeah. Yep. And so if I'm not mistaken, that is something that's going to be part of the package that's currently being deliberated in the U.S. Congress. And so I don't know how much of a role the state legislator is going to be having in terms of any of those checks and kind of approving that money. But my understanding right now, without kind of looking into this further, is that something that will kind of work like some of the stimulus packages in the past, where the federal government will pass and will pass that money, and then that'll be sent directly to you through the federal government. And I think that might skip our role here in the state legislature.
Okay, our next question is a question that was emailed to our office, and it is pertaining to redistricting efforts in Michigan. They would like to know if you have information on when redistricting efforts in Michigan will be completed, so when the new maps are supposed to be done, and how citizens are able to provide questions or feedback on that process.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, this is a issue that's top of mind for a lot of us in politics, and that kind of follow this. This is just a really important moment for Michigan, and so I know we're all kind of anxiously awaiting this. From my understanding, there was some delays. There's some kind of current delays happening with the census data, and the kind of the estimate I'm receiving right now is we are thinking early to mid-November of this year is when we'll kind of get a first view of the final maps. And then I'm sure that there's going to be some conversations after that. But yes, my understanding right now is we're kind of looking at November of this year to kind of have a better understanding of what the maps are going to look like from the new commission. I know that there's a number of hearings being held. You can go to redistrictingmichigan.org. Again, that's redistrictingmichigan.org. And then they kind of post hearings that are happening. And I think there's ways to submit inquiries and any questions you may have to the process. But there's absolutely going to be a number of public hearings held. I think it's really important if you have ideas, if you have thoughts, to make sure you do get that in to the commission.
All right, another question here from Facebook. It says, I just want to ask about buying a home. The market is so high in 4 to 6 months where it will be the end of. How can we think to buy a shelter for our children?
I think this is obviously very important. When someone is purchasing a home, a lot of times that's the largest transaction that they will complete, and go through in their life. And so I think everyone wants to do as much due diligence as possible and kind of understanding that they're doing the right thing. Unfortunately, I kind of have to punt this one where I'm not a realtor, and so it's hard for me to try to guess what's going to happen to the housing market. If you know anyone who knows, please let me know, because I would love that information as well. But again, no, I think it's something that everyone should, all jokes aside, I think it's a very serious question. And everyone's kind of always making sure that they're entering the housing market at the right time. From kind of the realtor friends I do know right now, I believe it is still a very much a seller's market. And there's a lot of great realtors in the 21st district. And so if you do have questions on needing to sell a property, please feel free to reach out. We can connect you with some of those individuals. But in terms of knowing what's going to happen to the market, 4 to 6 months, to be honest with you, your guess is as good as mine.
Okay, another question here that was submitted to us via email, and it is, it says, can you talk about the resolution that passed the legislature last week related to lame duck? It was voted out of the House, I believe, last Wednesday or Thursday.
Yeah. This was a really good resolution. I don't remember exact numbers, but I remember it was kind of pretty lopsided with a lot of people supporting it. Again, it was really nice to see an issue that both sides of the aisle could kind of agree on and fix. And so what's great about this is that it's going to require a 2/3 vote for any votes after lame duck. And so lame duck is between the period of an election and the end of the year. And so this period, for anyone who follows Michigan politics, is known to be notorious for approving just really terrible legislation. I mean, really, if you're voted out and you've been voted out and you're still sitting there, you necessarily don't have to vote in the best interest of the district anymore. And so, again, if you kind of look at years past, there's just been a tremendous amount of just sloppy and terrible, for lack of better adjectives, legislation that's passed. And so it doesn't make sense. Largely, a lot of this stuff is passed along party lines, and so the controlling party can kind of just slip through, legislation that's important to them, which may not be in the best interests of everyone. And so what this does is it turns the requirement from a simple majority to a 2/3 majority. And so with that being said, it just requires the need for more bipartisan solutions to make sure that you're getting a good number of people from the other side on board to your respective legislation. A lot of people have asked me, hey, we brought up redistricting, with redistricting happening, and the way kind of elections have gone for the last few cycles, there's a real chance, the Democrats are going to flip the House next term. And so what are you going to say about this rule when you're in control and it's a Democratic lame duck? But really, it shouldn't come down to party. Bad legislation is bad legislation. And it's important that we're fighting for solutions that work for all Michiganders and does not favor just one party. And so it doesn't matter who's in control. We need to be, this is good policy.
Great. We have a question here from Melissa Dobb on Facebook that I believe is in reference to Representative Kolazar's bill. Can you tell us about the bill that was passed to give financial assistance to children of fallen police officers and firefighters?
This was just a great moment for the caucus, and for me personally, Rep. Kolazar is a dear friend to me, and someone that I lean on a lot. And so it was very happy to see him get his first bill passed. On top of that, it was the first bill from our side of the aisle to pass this term. So there's a tremendous amount of joy. It passed unanimously. I thought about voting no just to rub him, but obviously we didn't do that. But I'm very happy for him. He put a lot of work into this, and what this does, and I should have a joint town hall where he could show, and you guys could see the excitement on his face with how passionate he is about this. But what it does, if I'm not mistaken, is right now, if your family unfortunately had a parent who was lost, who lost their life and gave the ultimate sacrifice of dying in duty, that student is able to go to a community college or a four-year college here in Michigan, tuition free. And before, there was some income caps that were put on. I think it was based on kind of the poverty wage. And what this does essentially is removes that to make sure that any child who loses a parent in this will have the pursuit of that education. But more importantly, any family who did lose a loved one in this knows that the state is taking care of their children and getting through college. And so, again, I'm going to have to bring Matt on here one of these days so that he can kind of show everyone just how great of a bill that is. But we are super proud of what he was able to do.
We have time, I think, we'll take two final questions here. And if anyone else has final thoughts or comments, go ahead and leave them. And we will take these last few minutes to answer those. But we have a question here on Facebook from Reggie that says, childcare expenses are outrageous for parents. What can you do to lower these costs for parents? Childcare should not be the size of a monthly mortgage.
Yeah. And I could not say that any better. I have two young ones myself. This is a constant struggle every month for my wife and myself to kind of reconcile these numbers. It's not cheap. And so I'm happy to be on this task force the governor set out. The whole point of this is to make childcare more accessible, meaning just cheaper and more affordable, just for all parents. So there's a lot we can do. Just off the cuff, we have a tremendous shortage of childcare centers. If you kind of go to really any reputable child center, no matter where you live, and you ask to get your kid in, most of them have wait lists, and they're not like a week or two, it's months. I know some were even over a year when my wife and I were looking. And so we need more childcare centers. There's a supply issue there's obviously steady demand, but there's a supply issue. And so we need to get more childcare centers opened up. And so in kind of my initial research here while being on the task force is realizing that the regulation that Michigan has to open up a childcare center is very difficult compared to most states. There's just a lot of things you have to do in Michigan to open a childcare center that you don't have to do in a majority of other states. And so we want to make this process more seamless. But at the end of the day, the priority is obviously keeping our children safe. And so we're never going to lose sight of that. And we want to make sure that we can maintain the quality of service that we're getting, but also make this more affordable. There's a number of other things that we are kind of thinking and contemplating. It's a little premature to share those just because we haven't kind of vetted all those ideas yet, but I can assure you there's a lot of great minds working on this. People have identified the issue. and we can hopefully kind of take the governor's lead and prioritize this and fix this, for all the young families out there.
Perfect. All right, we're going to answer one more question here that was submitted via email, and then you can fill everyone in on what we have in store with upcoming events and that type of thing. So this last question here is, can you just talk a little bit about what you are working on in Lansing in the electric vehicle space? We've only been here for a month, but where's all that at right now?
Oh man, that's like my favorite question. And so for anyone who knows any portion of me knows that I'm really excited about our automotive industry. Prior to my time as a state representative, I worked in the auto industry here with an OEM, largely in kind of this mobility space and with autonomous vehicles and electric drivetrains. So I will not bore everyone with my kind of long pitch on why we need to do this, but I can tell you that I am just very bullish on the potential for electric vehicles and the mobility movement and what that means for Michigan's automotive industry and what that means for Michigan's economy. So I kind of right off the bat have just started meeting with all the various stakeholders out there. And there's a lot of opinions in this space. I just quickly realizing that not everyone is as geeked up as I am about it. And so any good legislator is having all the necessary conversations. So this has been one of my priority issues. And so, the first is kind of showing up to Lansing and kind of making everyone understand that that this is something that is a priority for you. And so you can start getting meetings with all the various stakeholders out there. And so I know Hannah can attest to just the amount of meetings we've already had with just the various interest groups out there to learn kind of what's working, what isn't. There's also a number of task forces that are being established, and I'm trying to get a position on all of those to make sure that I'm kind of involved in just conversations that are happening in this space. There's also legislation that was introduced last term, which didn't come through, but we hope to be very active in kind of sponsoring and at a minimum co-sponsoring any legislation that's going to make it easier for Michigan to enable Michigan to be, again, a place where you can buy and use electric vehicles much, much easier than you can right now. So that's probably as concise as I can make it. Otherwise, I could go on for hours about this. I'm really excited. I think there's a lot. And again, just shamelessly subscribe to our newsletter. And, as we have more developments in this space, we'll make sure to include more language on that.
All right. So to wrap it up, why don't you just let everyone know what we have on the horizon here and what we're thinking about over the next few months in terms of these community coffee hours and making sure that everyone has an opportunity to ask their questions and get updates from you in Lansing.
Yep. And again, thank you to everyone for watching today. A special thank you to Hannah and Ashley. Just thank you for everything you do behind the scenes. We want to make these coffee hours enjoyable and productive for everybody. I'm sorry we can't get through all the questions. We try to be good about everyone's time and getting out in an hour. But if we were not able to answer your questions, again, please feel free to contact us on social media or email or whatever works for you, and we'll make sure we get to those questions. And if we don't know the answers, we'll look into them. But as I mentioned, kind of when I was opening, we want to kind of do a healthy rotation of times and locations and venues and forums, meaning right now we'll kind of stick to this Zoom and virtual format, and we'll stream them to all of our social media platforms. Eventually, in using the most extreme caution and CDC guidelines, we'll eventually look to migrate to more in-person. Because I know that these have just been popular for years in our district, and I want to make sure I continue that tradition. The next and we're going to keep mixing up times and days. I'm sorry, but please do not hesitate to reach out to us again, and we'll make sure we get back to you. I know we're a little bit over on time. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We're working hard for you. If we can ever help, don't ever hesitate to reach out to our office. It's an honor to serve you, and I look forward to seeing you all very soon. Stay healthy, everyone. Thank you.